Hey, welcome back to another episode of Rhino 101. In this video, we are going to draw all these weird looking curves and shapes together and learn the logic behind them. By the end, you'll know everything you need as a designer when it comes to curves in Rhino. So stay with me, let's jump in. So we will start with the most simple curves command. You're already familiar with that, and that is line. So we can just draw a simple line like this. The next one is lines, because if you use line, after drawing any line, you should repeat the command. So I should just right click every time. But if you use lines, you don't need to do that. You can just draw whatever you want. But if you select one of these, you can see you can select the whole shape with just one click. So we have the next command, polyline. Or we added this to aliases. So if I just use L and press enter, I will have polyline in my command line. But if you want to turn these three open curves into this, you can just use join. We already know this, but the new thing is about drawing curvilinear curves. So the first command is going to be circle. You can use this a lot in your architectural projects. So just click here for center of circle and you can set the radius by your mouse or entering a value. For example, I will enter 0.5 and I will press enter. We have some options for circle command, so we will see those as well. I just tell you the more important ones and you can try the rest of them by yourself. So the first option is going to be vertical. If you select this with your mouse or just tap V and press enter, you can draw a vertical circle. For example, you just click here and then you lock your direction in X direction by pressing shift and click here, and as you see, our circle is in vertical plane. As you see, my camera target is not exactly where I want. As I told you before, you can use target place option, or you can just hold Ctrl and Shift and then you can drag the viewport by your mouse right click. Here, as you see, we don't see any changes, and that is because I don't have a solid here. For example, I will set the target on a wrong place, for example here. And I want to rotate around my viewport. So you see, I don't like this much, but if I hold Ctrl and Shift and now use my mouse right click, as you see, I am rotating exactly around this solid form. So we will get back to our circle, and we also have another command we can use, and that is move target to objects. Press enter, and now it wants you to select an object. For example, you select your circle and press enter, and you can just rotate exactly around your circle with your mouse right click. So this is a very good command. The next circle option is 2 point and the next one is 3 point. For example, you want to have a circle between this and this line. So if you want to draw your circle in a regular way, you don't know where to put your center. For example, you put your center here and it's not exactly as you like. So you can repeat the command with your right click and choose 2 point option, and it wants you to select a start of diameter and then end of diameter. So if you use perpendicular or snap, you can have your circle in the right size and right location. So you can click here. But what about 3 point? For example, I will draw a rectangle here. The next command is rectangle. You can also use polyline to draw this, but rectangle is the faster way to do it. And I want to rotate this, and I don't know what angle this rectangle has, and I want to draw a circle on this rectangle, or I can just convert this to a plane. So I will select my rectangle and I will use planar surface. And now your rectangle is selected, so you can delete it or I just leave it as it is. And I want to draw a circle. Let's try with 2-point option. For example, I want to select this point and this point, but this is not the circle I wanted. So I just undo and do the circle again with my right click. So now I will choose 3 points and I will select this point and, for example, this point and this point here. So as you see, this is exactly on my plane's face. The next option that you may like to use is around curve. So you can just select your curve and select your center of circle, and it will draw a circle exactly in the direction of this line that you put your center on it. So for example, I will enter my radius 0.2, and you can use this for sweep command. In the future videos, I will tell you more about sweep command. So it's enough for circle. We want to see the arc command. In architecture, most of our curvilinear curves are arc, and arc is actually a part of a circle. For example, if I draw an arc here, you have to specify your center of arc exactly like center of a circle. I click here and you have to select your start of arc. So I will select this point, and it wants you to set end point or angle of this arc. For example, if I enter 90, it will use 90 degree as angle of this arc. So it will be a quarter of a circle. And if I do this again and I enter 180 degree, it will be half of a circle. And you can have these arcs with splitting circles. For example, if I draw a circle here and if I use a line to make it half, if you want to exactly split this circle into equal parts, you should use this perpendicular or snap. So I can just use trim, select this and remove this part. And this is exactly like this arc. There are also options for arcs. For example, you can draw your arc using start point. So instead of selecting center of arc, you start by start of arc. For example, you click here and you want to end here, for example. And then you can draw your arc like this. The next command is curve. So for example, you want to draw a curvilinear line, but it's more complicated than an arc. So you can just use this command. For example, I start my curve from here and set my next point here. As you see, you can have any kind of curve here by using this command. So I will select my next point here. And you can select your next point, for example, here and here and here and something like this. You can use these complicated curves for your landscape designs or organic shape designs. The next command is InterpCrv. It is very similar to curve, but here we have a slightly different approach. If I want to compare these two for you, I will just create two squares. Here we don't have a square command, we just use rectangle. I will type 0.5 for length and press enter to use length also for width. So this is my square and I will copy this. So if you use curve and you just select corner points of this square, you will have this shape. But if you use InterpCrv, that is stands for Interpolated curve, you will have a shape like this. I usually use InterpCrv in my projects, but sometimes you may prefer to use curve. The next command is spiral. This is kind of an interesting command. So you select this point as a start of your axis and select this point as end of your axis, and it wants me to set the first radius and start point. So I will just select this point, and if I zoom, you can select this point. And as you see, we have a spring-shaped curve here. You can use it for spiral stairs and other ideas you might have. The next command is Helix. You can set the start of axis here, and I want it to be vertical, so I will hold my Control key and click in the start point, and so my direction is locked on Z axis, and I will select end of my axis here. So you can decrease turns number here. We had 10. I will type 3 for example. Press enter. And it wants you to specify radius and the start point. So I will type 0.2 for example and select this point for start. And if I rotate this 90 degrees, these two are kind of similar to each other, but you set 1 radius for this one and 2 radius for this other one. So that's it for today. You learned almost anything you need about curves and lines in Rhino. In the next video, we will focus on editing curves, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please leave a like and drop your questions in the comments below. And for projects collaborations or any help, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I see you in the next one.